Chris. Waiting for the signal. All right, folks. All right. As you can see, we have security over here. He's probably not going to do anything except rug you on Twitter. Welcome, everyone. And if anyone's still outside with it, we've got more pizzas coming, by the way, because you all were famished, so we've done another round. So yes, round of applause, more pizzas. Let's effing go. Whoops, don't worry about that. So this is the first time we're doing it here. We are at Stone and Chalk, and we want to say thanks to our sponsors. Put your hands up, Stone and Chalk, people up the back. Thank you so much. We could not be here without you guys, and their CEO is going to come by later on to say hi. He's just on a call now, so that's Michael Bromley, so we will wait for that one later on. But before we begin, and we always do this before our events, we just need to acknowledge the custodians of this land. So I acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. So thank you very much. More drinks are out there, so feel free to squeeze between people. Hopefully there's enough space. We've kind of packed you in. If it's the first time that, actually before I go on, Chris, are we sounding okay? We're good? People online, Nick, hand up. Are we good? Hand is up. No complaints online. That's what we like to hear. So if this is the first time that you're here, this is the Aus DeFi Association end of month meetup. We started off as a group, a collective of 20 mates talking about crypto and working in this space, and it grew to 200 in February. We're now at 1,100 and growing. We're in 5 states now. We run events in Brisbane, in Melbourne. We're over there next week. South Australia is doing networking events, which is and also over in Perth. And there's a big collective of folks that are participating in discussions and really leading the charge on the Discord, on Twitter, and just being part of the community. There is so much going on in this space. It really does not feel like, except I'm getting rugged on the mic. It doesn't feel like a bear market except for that. But apart from that, it's all good. So what we're going to do, we did have a clicker, but apparently it doesn't work all the way back there. So Nick, up the back, if we can click. So this is like, who's the guy? Is it Joe Rogan? He's like, Jamie, throw that up. Nick, throw it up on screen. So this is a QR code, I'm told, and it leads you to a lot of goodies. Some of those being the links to the Discord, the Twitter, and all those things. But you guys are probably following us already. If not, we're going to be shouting it out more and more. It comes up again later on. What we're going to do for the rest of this meetup, we're going to have a few talks. We always start off with a recap of what happened over the last, it's usually 30 days, and there's been a lot. Hands up here who went to the Oz Crypto Convention. Wow, okay, more than I expected. So for those people that had their hands up, for those people that had their hands down, ask the person next to you about it, because even though it was their first event, it was really amazing. Whether you got a whale pass or not, and now you're kind of used to sitting up the front at every single kind of thing, that's cool. And your whale pass, sir, looks amazing, so we should NFT that. The rest of the talks we're going to have today is recaps of Oz Crypto Convention. We're going to talk a bit more about regulation, because it's a really hot topic right now, and Arturo loves regulation, so he's going to talk about that. God love him. And then we're going to do some stuff on, we're going to have a couple of different guests. And before we get started with those guests, why don't we get a special person up here, Michael Bromley, CEO of Stone and Chalk. Welcome.
I don't know about special unless you ask my mother, but so I just wanted to say hello and welcome. I won't take much time because this is far more interesting than I am. But I just wanted to say welcome to Stone and Chalk. What we're all about is innovation and building communities of innovation. That seems to be what you guys are all about as well. And we love things that break the mold. We love things that test the edges, and we love to help. So we're here. We're also in Melbourne. We're in Adelaide. We're in Perth. We're in Sunshine Coast, we're in Launceston, we're in lots of places around Australia in various forms, working in all emerging technologies. And so what we'd really like to do as hosts for you tonight is just welcome you. Really? People can't hear me? I've literally never heard anybody say they can't hear me before. I have such a loud mouth. Yeah, all right, that's all good. Do you want me to repeat all that? No. Nobody wants me to repeat all that. But I just wanted to say welcome. I wanted to say thank you for coming, and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot and contribute a lot. And as an ecosystem builder, Stone and Chalk would love to help you build an ecosystem around DeFi and Web3 and all the things that can break. Let's break some stuff. With that, I'll hand you back to Mark.
Thank you very much. Cheers. I love it. I like to break stuff. Hands up here who likes to break stuff. My builders, there you are, every single one of you. Whether or not you put it back together, that's another thing completely. So it's fine. We're going to have a couple of interviews. So hands up, Raymond's son, where are you? Right there, the man, the myth, the legend. What is it? Is it triple threat? Lawyer, AI guy, breakdancer. We're going to see any of those? Maybe the last one? Okay, we'll pay you, so he'll take Doge. So we've got an interview with him. We've got a VC Web3, what's the current climate like, with Steph. Hands up, lovely Steph. And then we've got a panel with a few folks from Soulbis. So where are the Soulbis guys at? Put your hands up. There we are, right up the back. Keeping us together with the soul. You know, Soulbound Tokens, all that fun stuff. We'll learn more about that. And then we'll close the networking. So we plan on running until about 8 o'clock. More pizzas should arrive at about 7:45. So if you can just hold on to your hunger pangs until then, or next time just get here earlier, which is fine. So first up, we're going to go through a recap of the last month. So if you can get the next slide, please, Nick. Throw it up, Jamie. We want to thank our sponsors. So these are our official sponsors on our sponsors page. A new one that just joined is, oh, they're gone. Okay, the sponsors are gone. Thanks to the sponsors, though. They're really good. If you want to learn more about them, replay the video. But no, we've got Not Centralized, which is the venture studio that is behind a lot of this kind of stuff. We can talk about that another time because you hear enough about it. Sensan, which seems to get rugged there because we've got the grey. But, you know, this is a good test for, like, if you're colorblind. You know how they change the numbers? Can you see it or not? Well, if you can see Sensan, really good eyesight. And then Kamma X is a new NFT marketplace platform. Guys doing good stuff out of Queensland. They're our main sponsor up there. And then Macari, who still sponsor us for a few things, and we sometimes use their event space. You'll look at the videos on YouTube. We have all of these recorded. It's online as well. So, you know, wave to the people on camera because they can see you guys up on stage and, you know, in the crowd here. But we record. It's online and, yeah, in real life. So next slide, please, and I'll get to shutting up pretty soon. So introductions, news of the week, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to the next one. That's a boring slide there. Highlights of the past month, 1,100 members now. Oz Crypto Convention was awesome. There was a lot of things that could probably be improved there, but for a first event, I still give it a high score, probably an 8 out of 10. It does give a lot of people the platform for what we can do more, and the fact that so many people were interested in this in a bear market is just absolutely fantastic. And then upcoming events, we're in Melbourne on the 4th, Brisbane on the 20th. This event here is always the last Wednesday of each month. So that is Sydney's day. And we've done that because there's other blockchain events around Sydney. The third Wednesday of each month is down at Surrey Hills, Blockchain Sydney. So, you know, we try to keep it there. There is a calendar as well. Let's go to the next slide. I don't know if I go to the calendar. I don't go to the calendar, but there is a calendar, and it's the pinned tweet on our Twitter, which keeps people up to date with what is going on in terms of Web3 events around the country. But this is the Oz Crypto Convention, so I think we should get Arturo and Liya up here to give a recap of like what their thoughts were. And why don't we get Nick up on stage to ask him some questions about it. Do you guys want to have a seat? Nick, Liya, Arturo, clap, clap, clap. Nick with a duck walk.
Hey guys, thank you. Thanks again, Stone and Chalk, for hosting us here. Awesome. Thanks to my favorite client at the back there for coming along as well. You know who you are. Thank you. So guys, CryptoCon, it was a vibe. It was definitely a vibe. There were some sort of pastiches of what crypto should be. So when you walked in the front door, there was the giant Lambo kind of surrogate penis sort of thing there, which was a little bit, I don't know, I thought that was a bit tacky, personally. Apparently the whale pass holders, though, you got chauffeur driven around in the Lambo on the Gold Coast, and then you got an optional erotic massage at the end from the, is that true, or maybe from one of our whale holders, or? Oh, sorry. One of the people in the audience, not entirely sure who, was a whale pass holder. I mean, some people said it was the biggest wank fest ever to have a whale pass holder. I mean, I'm not passing any judgment here. So that was interesting. That was entertaining. There was a rich tapestry of crypto exhibitors there. What did you love first? Maybe a bit controversial, what do you hate? Because full credit to Dave Haslop and team, they put on a fantastic event. But what did you love?
I was actually quite surprised how many people were there for NFT.
Sorry, is that on? Is this thing on?
It's our first
Sorry, my
time.
fault.
Yeah,
My
it's
fault.
on, it's on.
We're virgins with Mike, sorry.
Is it working? Yes.
Yes, you're on.
Yeah, so I was actually quite surprised, pleasantly surprised, how much content was about NFTs, how many sessions were around NFTs, how many people were there for NFTs, considering the state of the NFT markets at the moment. General markets as well. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was awesome. I'm personally quite interested in them, so for me that was great, and that was probably the highlight.
There was a free bar.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
hey.
that was really, really good.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about that. People had a lot of fun without actually making asses of themselves, which, you know, was a good one.
Apart from Captain DeFi, if you look hard enough, you can find footage of Captain DeFi's amazing dance skills. If you look hard enough. DM me, I can send you the link.
Look, I think that it was a great event because it was very much of a community-driven event, I would say. I mean, the organizers, they reached out at multiple stages, and they were really keen on getting feedback from the community and acknowledged, that there were a few issues, but I mean, we would have done a worse job, so I can't really complain. I think it was amazing, right? I think that one thing, before you go on to the next negative ones, I'll just jump onto that one.
I might not have gone there.
I'm going to go there. I'm going there. One thing that really surprised me was the amount of scams, like proper scams. Coins that were, solving blockchain trilemmas and shit like that. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. I think that it's really, really important for everyone to acknowledge that it happens and not just talk about it and leave it there, because I know that a lot of you don't like regulation and you'll say self-regulation. Well, what the hell are you actually doing is the question, right? You probably know about it, so then do something about it. As a community, now we are setting up a task force. Now we're having open conversations so that we can actually collect, let's say, question marks around protocols that, they say that they're doing things that are quite incredible. And, once we find those questions, very openly, we just want to engage with the right people, starting with them to see if they can actually answer those questions. And if not, then basically just go to the right, the right authorities or whatever it is that we need to do. So that as a community, we actually do something that's, that's good for everyone. I mean, kind of self-regulation, right? Even if that doesn't really work.
I'm moderately scared already, but it's okay. I don't think I'm doing anything nefarious. Right down the middle then, things that you'd maybe change, enhance for next time, anything that springs to mind?
I think considering everyone had their QR codes ready, the fact that the line on the first day was so long, like meters and meters and meters long. People had to stand and wait there for hours and missed.
I think it was nearly 2 hours. It was an hour and 45 or something.
It was a very long line, and a lot of people missed the Michael Saylor first act opening. The dial-in, yes.
Too controversial. Look, as a British person, I
Too
do
soon,
feel
too soon.
mortally wounded by that, actually. So, off topic for just an appropriate period of mourning, please.
So yeah, I think that can definitely be improved just in terms of logistics because, yeah, considering it's only 2 days to spend 2 hours in line, and I think it's not specific to AusCryptoCon. I think other conferences have that as well. NFT NYC had that to an extent when we were there in New York, but yeah, that's definitely something that can be improved. And I think the stages, the fact that they were all in this, so basically the setup was, it was in the exhibition center, and there were stages in each corner of the room, and the acoustics could have been better.
One thing I would disagree with is on the stages vibe. I quite like the way that they were kind of jammed in and packed in, and there was like standing room only at the back, and it had almost like, if you could get the same vibe as Suncorp Stadium and boil it down into a conference setting, I sort of quite liked that because everything felt jammed in and everything felt popular. I'm sure a lot of us have been here for to conferences where you just, you turn up at a venue and it's like there's like 5 people on chairs just dotted around, and you feel like you're talking to an echo chamber, but I did quite like that packed vibe. Arturo, just like little tune-ups that you would maybe think about for next time. Stay away from regs for now, okay?
Yeah, I would not have people dialing in. Simple as that. I mean, you could have people dialing in under special circumstances, but just don't market people as that are just dialing in. Exactly.
You had some passport issues apparently or something. I don't know. Like most Americans. Doesn't know what a passport is. What was the funnest thing that you saw there? What was the thing that you came away that gave you the most joy from the experience there?
I think it was the people, to be honest. We had a lot of fun. It was a lot of relationship building within the community, and that's one of the most beautiful things with the community, right? That it's real people. It's not individuals that are hiding behind a corporate facade that makes it impossible to actually get to know them.
Liya.
Yeah, I'd say that was the fun bit. And I think being away, it was on the Gold Coast. It's fun by definition.
We all got tats. Yeah, brilliant. Sorry, more tats. Sorry. Oh, that's a very good... Actually, yeah. Full disclosure. You guys were...
Thanks for that.
You guys were whale buddies in the front of the plane on the way back with Lisa Wade and all the hanging out with all those people, No, that was cruel. So next year, do we think there can be like a more outcomes-based? This is my last question, and then I'll bugger off. Do we think there can be more of like an outcomes-based, what was the point of all that consideration from the organising team? Because I think we would love to work with the organising team and just make it even more next level next year. But could there be an overarching goal for the community out of this, or is it just, hey, come and shill your wares on a booth and away you go?
Look, I think they did a good job considering there was only, I think, 3 of them. It was a very lean team organising it, and I think to pull it off it's a great outcome. I think getting a community together is always great, and I think people just need to be more realistic what expectations they're going in with, right? So it's a peer-to-peer festival. That's how I like to think about it, with a tech element. So it was community driven. Yes, there were some learnings, but should they do it again next year? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look, let me be clear. I would have done a much worse job, right?
That is a fact.
I'm just putting that out there. It's not a judgment. And I don't know if my following comment actually is applicable, but I wouldn't want to see corporate shills. I want to see real people talking about real issues and
How
real
do you get
potential
sponsors
solutions.
then?
Well, that's what I was saying. Maybe it's not applicable, but yeah.
No, love it. Thank you. That's my time slot. Thanks, everybody. Mark, you need to come back and where's he even gone? We're rudderless without him. He's busy monitoring the thing. What's happening next? You're happy doing some swapsies? This is not COVID safe. It doesn't
matter. What's COVID? I don't know. Anyway, please go back to doing the thing that you do, Nick. Nick is usually back at house, and he's fantastic up on stage too. So we'll bring him back up, and Liya as well. But I just wanted to mention Aus DeFi. If anyone in the crew is doing stuff in the media, we want to hear about it. So this is a shill for me. Sorry. but I do a lot. So Ozbiz, Arturo and I were on talking about something that he's going to talk about in a little bit before we get to the interviews. And there's a really cool show. We met these guys at Oz Crypto Convention. They're called the Assets Show. They've had Steve Vallis on. They've had one of the founders of Banksa on recently, and talking about really interesting things there. And then they had me on for some reason, but it was a pretty popular show. I don't know if there was all just bots watching it, but a couple of thousand views. It's more than we got on our YouTube channel for Aus DeFi, but hey, you know, we're still trying to grow. So if anyone in the group here is doing something to do with the media, or you think you've got something cool and you want to share it with some of the media partners that we've got, please reach out, because we want to get more of our voices heard rather than just it's all FUD, it's all scams, it's all environmental, you know, crap. So we need the positive stories, so please do reach out. Next slide, please, Nick. Upcoming events, as I mentioned, when you do go to our Twitter page, the first link there, the first pinned post, it talks about this calendar that we've now crowdsourced. So a couple of other associations are helping out, a couple of other people are helping out. Keep track of what is going on in the Web3 space across Australia, so please do check that out. You can see it as a list, you can see it as a calendar. So if you're traveling and you're in Melbourne next week, you'll see that there's a few events there. Wherever you go, we're adding more cities and states and more organizations to it. So keep an eye out for that. Next slide, please. Interviews. And after that, numbers. Okay, here we go. I think this is my cue to get numbers up here. You got the mic? You good? All right.
Can you hear me? Yeah, good. Nick, don't screw up my flow. Do the deck properly. Next slide. Okay.
Serious.
I think this sums up the issue that we have with blockchain nowadays. Blockchain is supposed to be immutable, it's permissionless, it's private, but the reality is that law has requirements from us, and it's effectively about pointing fingers, it's about penalizing people that break the law, and to the best of our abilities, it's about rolling back non-compliant outcomes. Now, that doesn't happen, it's not possible all the time, but let's put it this way, it's not acceptable to every single time something goes wrong say, well, we can't do anything about it, at least not according to the way that the law works right now, or rather we perceive the law working right now. Next slide. So, I speak a lot about regulation, and the reason is because it's the biggest thing, or the biggest problem that I face today as a developer on a daily basis. And as a builder also, I can't wait until people try to figure out what legal blockchain actually looks like, because I want to do things today, right? So what we've done is that we've architected, let's call it a methodology, called Layer C. It's a project working name. Now, bear in mind, we build in the open. We say that Web3 is about building in the open, so if you're going to drink your own Kool-Aid, then that's what you do. You talk about things as you build them. This is not a final product. We have a lot of smart contract prototypes testing the idea behind this, but we're very happy to talk to people about it and you know, have shit thrown at it, basically, because that's the only way you actually make it bomb-proof, right? So, as a standard blockchain developer, you know OpenZeppelin. If you want to deploy an ERC20 contract, you just go to OpenZeppelin, you get that contract, and it's battle tested, right? It's open source. Everybody can use it, play with it, break it, give feedback, make it better, right? It's Linux. That's worked really, really well. Now, the same principle can actually hold for regulatory compliance. Now, regulatory compliance, as I was saying before, it's about two things. It's about having the ability to identify a person that is actually dealing with a product that you're building, and it's also about enabling censorship and control over the functionality that the contract actually offers, right? So the design is basically that a developer chooses a contract. Let's put it this way. Let's say that a developer wants to build a share registry and put that on chain, right? A share registry, if you have a company, you put shares into that thing, there are regulatory requirements that you need to abide by. And those are not blockchain friendly at all. You need to be able to control who owns the shares. You need to be able to take shares away from one wallet, put them into another. So forget the concept of permissionless. Like that does not exist anymore. At least not if you want to be compliant, or unless you want to be, fully anonymized. So what we do is that we have this set of open Zeppelin contracts, and we've implemented the ability to permission through whitelists and other regulatory permissions depending on the type of financial product that you're actually selling out there. Again, I'm not talking about, is Dogecoin actually security or not? I'm not having that conversation. I'm telling people, if you want to build a protocol that actually is a financial product and you acknowledge that it is, then this is a way for you to actually do so in a compliant way without it being too expensive. Now, again, the developer downloads the contract, does whatever customization they need to do, and then they don't deploy it straight to the blockchain. What they do is that they deploy it through a service called Layer C, Layer Compliance, very clever, that manages three things. Manages technology, regulation, and pseudo-privacy, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. Now, I'll briefly mention the technology part. So, first of all, immutable contracts are not compliant most of the time. The reason why is simply because laws change. And maybe laws don't change necessarily, but outcomes change, right? You have a court order that says, this is an edge case, it wasn't really taken into account, you need to deal with it. You need to be able to change the ledger, you need to be able to upgrade the smart contracts. And that process, if you have a smart contract that has $2 billion under management, the upgrading of the contract needs to be done very carefully. You'll have to manage private keys. Most developers don't really know how to do that. So that's part of the, let's call it the bomb-proof workflow, dealing with a life cycle of a live smart contract that is actually dealing with real-world effects. Next slide. Another cool thing, before I get into the detail of how it works, is that, many people talk about regulated blockchains and needing to deal with global regulation, which effectively means that regulators need to be able to agree on what a global regulatory standard looks like. Bullshit, it's never going to happen, at least not in our lifetime. So the nice thing with this methodology is that we're effectively encoding regulation within the smart contract. Now that kind of, it flips the whole idea of regulation on its head, and that'll be a little bit more clear in the next slide. Don't change yet. No, go back.
Ready.
But the effect of that is that on a public blockchain, you can actually have an Australian regulated ecosystem, a US regulated and a UK regulated ecosystem, where in reality, the key players on this public blockchain are effectively the KYC providers, because those are the ones that are actually saying this wallet is an Australian retail investor, this is an Australian institutional investor, and do so for each ecosystem. And within the smart contracts, because of the permissioning, if one retail investor wants to trade with another retail investor, then that transaction only goes through if the smart contract checks with the whitelist and say, yeah, that's okay. If it's a financial product that only goes to institutional investors, then an institutional investor can just not settle a trade with a retail investor because it's encoded in the contract itself. Now an interesting thing is, if you have these insular ecosystems, you can actually have a bridge where you can move tokens from Australia to the US. Think of it this way: you have Australian tokens, let's call it Australian wrapped ETH, and you want to move that to the US. What you do is that you'd burn the Australian wrapped ETH, you'd mint a US wrapped ETH, still respecting the total supply of the token and being completely regulatory compliant, right? So they don't even need to like each other, those two different countries. It would still work. Next slide. Now, when I was saying before that you can't see that very well. When I was saying that it turns the regulatory picture on its head, is because right now, the regulatory responsibility when you're selling a financial product sits on the distributor to a large extent. Sure, there is a big part in the product, but the point of contention, let's put it this way, the sensitivity is on the person that actually owns the client. Because they need to do the KYC, and they are the ones that actually enable the settlement of the trade with that retail investor. But in our case, that doesn't happen, right? Because you could have anybody go out, and I'm not saying I'm waving my hands here, right? Because there are still rules around how you communicate with investors around financial products and so forth. But the point is that I could literally go out and tell a retail investor, you go buy this token, which is an institutional token, and it won't settle. So at the end of the day, regulation sits on, first of all, the KYC entities actually doing their job well. This is Frankie 2 and Frankie 3. And then once that token has been deployed, it can actually deploy to not Uniswap, or not Binance, or not Aave. You can actually deploy a token into a decentralized world, still being regulatory compliant, which is a bit strange, because before you'd think that the token needs to be dealt with only within closed circles like an actual exchange. Go to the next slide. Now, let's talk about privacy. Regulators obviously want to see absolutely everything. Market participants want to hide absolutely everything. Now, I think that one of the most beautiful things that we've seen with blockchain is the use of zero-knowledge proofs. And it's a bit difficult for many to understand what it actually means, but ZK proofs, Tornado Cash, and mixers, when they're used properly, it's absolute privacy, right? It's cryptographic privacy. It's privacy to the point where the information never existed. So it's not about saying, well, this thing happened, I'm going to hide it and I'm going to keep it somewhere. That information just does not exist. There's no way of retrieving that, right? Obviously, that's not compliant with regulation because they want to know exactly what happened. So there are a few working models around how you achieve privacy. First of all, if you know exactly which the wallets are that are dealing in Tornado Cash, then obviously that privacy goes away. But at the same time, Tornado Cash, or rather transacting tokens, is not the only behavior that you actually want to be able to hide. So another approach is to actually synthetically create turbulence within the set of transactions. It's basically obfuscating. It's what rich people do all the time when they set up an entity in the Cayman Islands and then they move money around here and there and so forth, right? It's the cost of privacy. That costs something. Same thing here. Privacy will cost to achieve, either through computations of ZK proofs or by creating this turbulence in the market, which I will show next slide. But to achieve that, we need to have a layer 2 because it's going to get expensive. Next slide. There we go. So to show what the concept of this synthetic turbulence is that if we look at a layer 1 transparent transaction, even with layer C, is that first person sells to second person, passes through layer C, which means that it's compliant, but everybody can see what's happening because it is a public blockchain. In the second version, where you have that compliant pseudo-private transaction, and when I say pseudo-private is because it's not perfectly private. The information does exist, but it's supposed to exist only accessible to, let's say, the government, the ones that you care about. And in this second layer, what would happen effectively is that when person 2 wants to trade, person 1 wants to trade with person 2, they pass through a layer, and it kind of looks like a neural network. It isn't. But the point is that person A or person 1 has multiple wallets, and you're constantly moving assets between these wallets, making it more difficult to know who is who. Because bear in mind, the only person that actually knows that those wallets belong to person 1 is the KYC provider. What is actually better?
To the mood lighting.
Yeah, turn that off. Yeah, good, thanks. Once they pass through the wallets, They pass through a few more layers of obfuscation, and at the end of the day, it's really, really, really difficult to figure out from a public blockchain that this person transacted with that one. Look, it's not an elegant ZK proof type of thing that Tornado Cash did, which I have to say was beautiful, but it does work. It's kind of like the anti-Chainalysis method. If you assume that Chainalysis is the, let's say the best way, or they are the most skilled individuals in actually tracking transactions, right? If the transactions are there, and I spent the day with Jacob afterwards, he's a wonderful guy, the chief scientist, and I have to say that if anybody's actually tracking transactions for some reason, like those were the best people to do it from a personal point of view. But what they do, what they say is that, look, we're not regulators, we're just making the information available more transparent so that you can actually see what's happening. And the same happens here. This is a public blockchain. If they understand what these transactions are, they will make a product that decodes this. So when I say anti-Chainalysis, what I mean is that what this turbulence is supposed to do is make it difficult for people that are trying to generate insight from the transactions to actually know what that insight is, because you want to stay private, but not private enough for the government not to be able to track your moves. Right? Next slide. So let's be clear. It's total government control. Like, this is like Thanos level shit. But it's not my fault, right? I didn't make this. It's the regulators. That's what regulation effectively means. And if you don't like it, then don't go after blockchain. Don't try to circumvent it unless you want to go to jail or you want to stay anonymous. Deal with it, right? But at the end of the day, this is what it is. So yeah, thank you.
Wow. Wow. If we remember anything from that, I love Tornado Cash. Arturo, September 28th, 2022. You heard it here. This is recorded, so it's all good. Any regulators in the house? Oh, okay. Oh, and absolutely. Thank you, Liya. So there is a recording from the sessions on the Gold Coast. So if you guys, I mean, it was really hard. There were so many cool events on that we didn't get to see all of them because you can't, at this point in time, we haven't invented clones. So we can't be everywhere at once, but at least there are the recordings. Just like we've got recordings here. Next slide, please. Thank you. Let's get Raymond up on stage and Liya to interview. Those are on. Yep, good.
Okay. Hello, Raymond. Right, so Raymond is a lawyer with Herbert Smith Freehills, but also is probably one of the most multifaceted, multi-dimensional people I've met in a long, long time. So not only are you a lawyer, you're also an AI programmer, you're a content creator, and you're a dancer. So welcome. I'm very keen to dive into this. So lawyer and AI programmer, what came first, law or tech? Because they're quite sort of big topics.
Is this loud enough? Test. Here we go. Emergency mic.
Oh, good. There you go. Thank you, everyone. So I think tech probably came first as a passion. So it started in high school. I played a lot of games with my friends, but parents are like, oh, stop playing games, do something productive. So I thought, why not learn how to build games? And so my friends and I started learning how to build games. And there was a platform called Game Maker Studio, which is basically a drag and drop interface on how to build games. There was no programming at all, but it got me understanding, X and Y coordinates, how maths is actually useful for you. After HSC, most of my friends went on to do computer science. I was odd one out. I did law. Partially because I was very interested in legal studies and also find law very fascinating. Like, it's like a puzzle. Everyone's subject to the same laws, but it's up to your skills to try argue, to try put forth your best case. And I found that very, very fascinating, kind of like chess. And so I started doing law, but then I didn't want to miss out on the programming tech side. So my friends also encouraged me to just also learn proper coding. So start with Python, then learn Java, Node.js. And once you get the basics down, you can pretty much learn any language that you want and
So
start
are you
doing my own
self-taught?
projects. Yeah, so
wow.
I'm self-taught, and I learned through building projects. And I'm very grateful to be in the internet era. I can look up YouTube tutorials for free. Stack Overflow is amazing. So yeah, it's a very fun hobby. So I didn't do it for the sake of career or resume. I did it because I really like programming. It's like chess, or it's like painting, or whatever, reading to me. Yeah, it's really fun.
Amazing. And how did you get into Web3? I guess it was quite a organic
Yeah, like
progression. I
yeah,
imagine.
pretty organic, like oranges and apples. So like I started delving into crypto trading. So back in 2016, 17, when the crypto hype was pretty big, I made an account on like Binance and just played around with crypto, learned about futures trading, started watching tutorials on technical analysis, looking at the MACDs, moving averages, stuff like that. So really fascinating. So that was my first-hand experience of playing with crypto. And then when I started at my current firm, Herbert Smith Freehills, due to my technical programming background, I went on a brief secondment to IBM. So back in 2018, HSF and IBM were working on a joint blockchain platform to build smart legal contracts. And part of that was to build out the smart contract element for smart legal contracts. So for those who don't know, smart legal contracts are basically legal contracts that are performed by code. And so I went there just to help build out the smart contract component, writing in Golang, and also building out the interface for the platform. And that got me some experience in writing smart contracts. That was around 2018, so still not as hype as today. But due to that experience, diving deep into Web3 was quite smooth. The concepts that I came across came in quite quickly, so that's kind of like how I got into Web3, yeah.
And is that what you focus on in your sort of day job now, the smart legal contract side?
Yeah, so right now in my firm, I work in the technology, media, and telecommunications team. Eric in the background, guy with glasses, yeah. He's also in the same team as me. Yeah, so basically it's a very broad team where we specialize in tech, media, and telco. For me, I've decided to carve out my own niche in AI and Web3. And basically, in terms of the Web3 space, I have like 3 roles. The first role is advisory, where basically clients who have Web3 projects, whether it be NFT, crypto, or DAOs, they come to me, and I basically advise them on liability risks and also help draft terms, conditions that help protect them and not get rugged. So, and it sounds like, terms, conditions sounds boring, but the common mistake that many startup founders do, especially when they're doing it by themselves, is go into Bored Apes and copy and pasting terms and put into the document, go into another source and copy and paste another paragraph and put it in their draft. That doesn't work, especially if a lawyer sees it. The definitions don't match up. There are gaps in the liability clauses, so definitely get a lawyer to help out with that. So that's one thing I do. Another thing is I'm like a connector. So I'm at a pretty big firm. We have many teams across multiple offices. And if a client comes to me, they have like specific, financial services issue, that is not within my expertise, but I can help refer them to a financial services team. And in that sense, I'm like the first point of contact. I'm the connector. And related to that second role is my third role, which is like the translator. So clients, they're very technical people. They speak in like Python when you talk to them. And for the ordinary lawyer, they don't understand that. So I'm here to kind of like explain how the product works and then explain in simple terms to the lawyer, and the lawyer can then apply the rules to them. So in that sense, that's kind of like my tripartite role as a Web3 AI lawyer, and same for AI. Yeah.
Can't imagine there's many people like you in. I've definitely never met them.
I'm going to this event to try find my people. So hopefully, I'm like, I don't know. It's like being Aang, the last Airbender, just trying to find these people.
Okay, so outside of your work, amongst other things, you also build apps.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think there's about 3 that I saw on your profile on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So as a programmer, you like building's like just fun. So I've built quite a lot of projects, but probably the three most commercially viable ones are one, an app called Sync Trainer, SYNCTRAINER.
Find it on YouTube. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's basically a mobile AI app that can analyze how synchronized your dance is, gymnastics, martial arts, any form of synchronized sport. You upload a video to the app, it analyzes it for you and tells you how we performed and where you can improve in certain shots. I don't collect your data, so feel free to go crazy on it. Second product is a product called Extract, which is mainly for lawyers. It's basically a Chrome extension that basically extracts all the definitions and cross-references when you click on a clause in the federal legislation. And that'll probably become useful when one of the digital assets bill will eventually become to law, which I'll talk about later. That's a Chrome extension. And the third one is a product that I built for the firm, which is called the Deep Tool DEAP, which is basically a tool that can extract information from public searches for the purposes of like due diligence reports. Basically an information extractor. So that's some of the examples I've built, yeah.
Amazing. And I know you're sort of quite interested in regulation side as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening in sort of the broader digital asset space regulation at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Next slide. Oh yeah, so over the past month, there have been three major developments. Maybe some of you have already heard all of them or any of them, but if not, I'll just briefly go over them. So the biggest one is, first one, token mapping exercise. The federal government has announced that they want to conduct basically like a consultation research process where they're gonna map out all the cryptos in the world and try to work out what the purpose and functionality of each crypto is for them to inform how to write regulation. It's progress, but there's some criticism among the industry that this is like a very dumb approach to working out how regulation works, especially when there's like 21,000 cryptos and growing right now. So good luck to them, but taxpayers' money is going towards that. Number two, digital assets, which is probably the big one, and you can see that guy right in the middle. His name is Senator Bragg. Let's brag about his bill. So he's a senator who single-handedly drafted this draft bill called the Digital Assets Market Regulation Bill. And this is going to be one of the many installments to regulating the whole digital asset space. And when I say digital assets, that basically means any digital representation of value or rights that can be cryptographically verified on a DLT or some alternative technology. And the main takeaway from this is that this is meant to regulate markets, so not everything, so not yet blockchain infrastructure, mainly just markets. And what I mean by that is if you are a crypto exchange, or if you're a custody service provider, or if you want to issue a stablecoin, when this law passes, you need a license for that. And each license attaches certain conditions. So for example, stablecoin license, you need to make sure that you have enough reserves to guarantee the value of stablecoin, which basically means algorithmic stablecoins are basically done in Australia once this comes out. So right now it's still in draft, still not yet read by both houses, but when it does, it'll probably be pretty big news, and there'll be a lot of, I guess, overhaul in the current system.
Yeah, I think actually Senator Bragg spoke virtually at the Oz CryptoCon. He did a session on the second day. Yeah.
Number three is the RBA Central Bank Digital Currency Research Project. This just came out this was announced like on Monday or Tuesday. So the Reserve Bank is launching a research project into CBDCs. It's just a research project, and they want to pilot EAUD, so basically a digital form of the Australian dollar. And they want to just explore the use cases. So they want to launch it on an Ethereum platform as a pilot, and they're getting community members, stakeholders, industry, just to comment on what would be the best use cases for CBDCs. So there's a paper on that was released on Monday, and and it's going to have limited functionality for pilot phase. And the aim is to get a report by mid next year, is to advise government on the next steps forward, themselves on how to launch this actual platform. And one of the interesting things is that, just relating these two, the digital assets market bills, one of the interesting provisions is that it's targeting the Chinese digital yuan, which means that if you're a bank holding digital yuan, by the time this law passes, you have to provide regular reporting requirements that you hold REN. And it'll be very interesting how when this launches, whether digital assets will also, change to accommodate for CBDCs, and whether there'll be any favoritism or it'll be a neutral application, because the law right there quite explicitly calls out the digital REN. And there are possibly some geopolitical reasons behind that, but it's very interesting, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah.
But broadly, I think it's really good to see the government taking more interest in regulation and kind of delving deeper. I was at the Intersect conference, which is a fintech conference a couple of weeks ago, but it was very, very digital asset heavy. And there was a lot of presence from members of the government or Treasury.
As just basically reciting Arturo's comment, like regulation is definitely coming, but how the government is approaching this is based on higher risk than lower risk. So out of the whole blockchain, Web3 space, DeFi is the one that's got the highest amount of harm and risk. People lose money, especially over the recent events, Terra Luna got wrecked and lots of people got wrecked. So they're focusing on especially crypto trading and DeFi and stuff like that. Eventually, they'll probably release bills on blockchain. Fun fact, one of the very few countries that has a proper blockchain act is Liechtenstein.
I did not know that.
Also Luxembourg. I keep getting those two mixed up. Just Google search one of them, and they have a proper blockchain act. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the centralized exchanges in Australia are actually very welcoming of regulation as well. They want to be regulated.
Right. So there's a 9-month waiting lag period for companies to catch up on it. But there's an exception under the Digital Assets Act, which is that if you are a foreign let's say crypto exchange, and you already have a substantially similar or a solid license overseas, that the minister of Australia, then that should be covered under the exceptions. Yeah.
Overseas anywhere or any particular countries?
So it's overseas anywhere, and how the act has been drafted is that there's a keyword called Australian link, which is basically very broad to capture. It doesn't matter if you're overseas, as long as you do trade and commerce in Australia, which itself is already a broad term in many legislation, then you'll be captured under this law. Kind of similar to how the European Privacy GDPR Act works. You can be outside of Europe, but the moment you touch personal information in Europe, boom, you're captured by the GDPR. So it's a very broad application.
Great. To touch on the AI, is there anything exciting going on in the AI regulatory space?
Yeah. So next slide, and that'll be it. So I like to talk about first, the tech side. So before I go into this, Web3 and AI are separate fields, but they can be related. AI is mostly relevant to the application layer of blockchain. So not so much L1 or L2, but more so just apps that run on blockchain, and AI can help with that. And the commonality between blockchain and AI is data. So if there's data, then AI is like a seagull that can just come in and eat that data. But as we all know, what's the biggest problem with AI? It consumes data, right? And what can data include? Personal information, right? And that's the P word, privacy issues. So that's a pretty big issue with AI, right? How do you use AI properly without intruding on privacy? But fortunately, some smart people in the world have thought of federated learning, which is actually a really cool technique of machine learning. It's basically decentralized machine learning. So to give an example, let's say I want to build a neural network or an AI that can classify between dogs and cats. Now, one approach is I get all of you to send me photos of dogs and cats to me, and then I'll train it and you have that AI model. But the problem is, let's say your dog, you don't want to disclose its identity or whatever. So the federated learning approach is I basically copy and paste that neural network and I give it to everyone, okay? And everyone takes out their phone, and then on your phone you have your own dog and cat photos. You train the model on your own phone. And then by a certain deadline, you only give back to me the model. You don't share the photos with me. You only give me back the model. And each model will be pre-trained and adjusted to like basically reflect the training in your phone. And from here, I'll just basically average out all the weights and biases to create one aggregated neural network. And the key advantage of this is that none of you are sharing any personal information with me, which means you preserve your privacy, but at the same time, I still get access, I still get to train my AI on your data. And the reason why I raise this is because this copies the concept of decentralization. And especially when as more blockchain industry gets bigger, there'll be more decentralized apps. This will probably be a potential like transition or a nice area for AI to kind of come into. And one example kind of be like, oh, sorry, did you have a?
It's also in line with the Web3, I guess, concept of owning your data,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And how
right.
you use it and how you apply it and
Yeah.
who you sell it to.
Yeah, that's right. So the whole federated learning is definitely a nice sweet spot between privacy and like effectiveness and stuff. But yeah, there's also regulation coming for AI, not as quick as Web3, but right now, probably the strongest that we have are the Australian AI ethic principles, which were released in 2019. There's 8 of them, and I can't recite them all, but basically, the 8 principles are you got to be fair, you got to be transparent, AI's got to be for social good, you got to have someone accountable when AI goes wrong, stuff like that. Just Google search AI ethic principles, should be there. And these are non-mandatory, so it's up to you to follow them or not, but the government says it's highly recommended that you follow. So try follow them. But actually related to that is the second point. So right now we only have an ethical framework, but the government is looking into actually enforcing hard, legit legislation. And recently the government has launched a consultation period where they got everyone to like write submissions and comments on how you should craft your AI regulation. So Herbert Smith Freehills was one of the one of the firms who submitted submission, and basically the government has now, the period has closed, the government is now looking at these submissions and just finding what's the best way to approach AI regulation. Australia is quite behind compared to other jurisdictions. Like Europe is like mad, like they got the actual draft AI Act out. China has actually got actual legislation now, so it's called the Internet Recommendation Algorithm Act. So how China's doing it is they're regulating AI by sector, while Europe is regulating AI by across industry, cross sector. So one size fits all approach. China's more targeted. UK is kind of following the EU approach, but a bit more lenient, allowing industry to create their own more specific rules. And USA is kind of messy, but because each state kind of has their own thing. So the whole world is trying to find the best way to craft the AI regulation. But in terms of hard enforcing laws, in New South Wales, there is actually a mandatory scheme called the AI Assurance Framework, which only applies to government. So I'm not sure if that even applies to you, law, but for those who know any government people, if you're in government and you want to launch an AI project, there is actually a framework that you have to comply with. And this framework involves 5 ethic principles which you must follow, very similar to the Commonwealth AI ethic principles. Also, there's going to be established an AI review committee. So if your AI project hits a certain high risk threshold, then your project has to be reviewed by the government for it to be actually used. And this is great because some of you may have heard there's a recent Royal Commission into robo-debt. That stuffed up many people. But basically, it was basically a response to that. So they want to make sure that any government AI projects go through quality assurance and make sure it doesn't hurt people. And that's basically it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Raymond Sun, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, wow. This mic's loud. Wow, there we go. Well, maybe it's just my voice. Does anyone else's brain hurt after that? It's a good thing because it means you're learning. So that is brilliant. What was it, Liechtenstein? What was the other one? Luxembourg and Libya, I think, was the third one that we were looking for there. But on the other note, because there is this crackdown on DeFi, as of tomorrow, maybe tonight, midnight tonight, we might change our name from Australian DeFi Association to something else, so we'll see. But while we're here, let's get Nick up on stage. We're going to be interviewing, we're going to be talking about Web3 and VC space. Steph Bazley, where are you? Come up on stage, come on down, right here.
Hi, Steph. Oh, is this thing on?
It's not. Oh, yes, it's on.
Good evening, Wisconsin. Sit down, Steph. Great to have you here. Sorry, that was
Wait, are
really
you gonna
that was
stand? 'Cause
terrible.
if you
Sorry,
stand,
Liya.
I'll stand.
Liya's like, just by your laugh alone, I can tell you. What the fuck are you doing? You can sit down, Steph. It's all good.
No, then I feel like I'm being interviewed, and let's just.
Yeah,
make
but
it
I'm
casual.
really small, so I get you won't even notice the difference. Like if I be like down, I'll do. Here you go. Look, I'll do it from
Okay,
here.
this is very awkward.
So, I'm just going to throw some. This looks
no,
really
I
like.
think you're about to propose.
Am I
You can't
proposing,
play with my
or-
heart like that.
You must get that a lot. It's okay. I'll just. Okay, I'll stop flirting now. I'm going to put some words to you here. Hippocampal replay and memory consolidation in a model of Alzheimer's disease. Brackets University of Cambridge. Which member of these two people speaking here knows anything about that?
Me? That was
Yeah,
my.
no, yeah. Another thing here. COVID-19 response, policy research at the Wilberforce Society, a year at Gitcoin, and now going right to the gutter level, investment manager at Airtree. It's a storied career which is seemingly only just beginning. So how did you get involved in investment management after your medical career? Because you're also a doctor. Because
not.
you went
No,
to
I'm not.
ANU. It says here, Doctor of Medicine, MD.
In progress.
No,
I'm a medical
super
student.
super impressive, amazing. What brought you to Airtree then?
For sure. So I actually came to Airtree probably in a very non-traditional way. So kind of as mentioned, my background in the very public sense was kind of that path through medical research into med school, which I'm currently in year 3 of. And so I kind of back in the background and concurrently also did some tech consulting. Also kind of got my spent a little bit of time in blockchain, particularly helping out with some coins, helping out on some projects, advising on DAOs, kind of along the lines of tokenomics, ethical design, and operations, things like that. And then, so that's kind of something I don't really talk about publicly, but moving forward, I had a very good conversation with John Henderson, who is a partner at Airtree and runs our Web3 fund, at the Australian blockchain week earlier this year. And we were sitting down and having a bit of a chat with Susano. And John had said to me, "Who are you and what do you do?" And I said, "I'm just a med student." And so he invited me to a chat. I piqued some interest, and the two of us told each other our life stories, and after that he said, "Okay, now I'm going to tell you why you're going to hate VC." And I think he's probably either very good or very bad at his job, but by the end of that conversation I loved the idea of VC. And so past that point I got hired as kind of like the resident blockchain nerd at Airtree, and kind of moved into this role where we're definitely investing in. We have a $50 million investment fund for purely Web3 blockchain technology. And so I have a role as an investment manager there, but I also kind of have some role in building of our investment thesis and putting out content and strategy along those kind of lines.
I love it. Brilliant. Really good origin story. What essentially appeals to you about the deploying capital task then? Because it's a tricky role. You've got LPs to appease. You've got to risk manage your that capital that you're deploying has to be done through a risk management. Don't worry about that framework. What is it that appeals to you about that sort of custodial fiduciary duty of deploying that capital?
I think probably if we take a step back and look at what the day-to-day of an investment manager is, particularly my role. I look at everything that has to do with blockchain and Web3. So as someone who is just chronically curious, for better or worse, it's the best job in the world because I can meet with people who are building in, what is Web3? Web3 is everything. So as long as you're building something that is blockchain related, I'm going to, potentially I could be meeting with you. And so it's such a wide breadth of content, but also, obviously when we come down to down that pipeline, we come into these ideas of are we allocating capital in a certain way? How are we choosing to allocate that capital? What is our risk profile as a VC? Where really venture is a very high risk category of investment. So I think probably what appeals to me on a very basic level day to day would be the wide breadth of people and ideas that I get to kind of deep dive into. And then past that point, I would say, obviously you mentioned I'm have a background in science, research, policy, this kind of thing. So I do like kind of getting down to the nitty gritty. And definitely VC allows you to do that once you get into your deep dives, your due diligence, and a few kind of moving down that line of investment.
So I'm hearing from that you can be professionally curious, and you get to meet a huge wide variety of people. Your LPs then at Airtree, it's a storied VC fund. There's essentially yourselves, there's Blackbird, there's Square Peg, there's kind of a big 4 or 5 in that space. Your LPs' attitudes to what can be a very volatile space, after the kind of wintry period we've had, and obviously the timing of your fundraise was great because now you get to deploy at depressed valuations, and that's great. What are they talking to you about? And obviously some of this will be sensitive, and I appreciate that, but to the extent you can share that, are they still all in on the idea that Web3 eats the world, to partly coin and bastardize a A16Z phrase? Talk to us about LP attitudes.
I think that when we look at what we're investing in, that is really the answer to your question. Because if you were to be investing in projects that either are bear/bull market dependent, or potentially a model or a company of something that is, vaguely different and, very much dependent on a certain market cycle, that's definitely something that would be an issue for our liquidity providers, but also for us. And also, it's not really our vision at Airtree. I think probably if we look back a few steps in the history of Web3, we have seen an example of VC, Web3 VCs that have dumped coins, dumped equity as soon as they can, caused a fair bit of disruption in the space. And honestly, that was one of the big questions that I had coming in. But at Airtree, our Web2 history informs our Web3 future. Not that Web2 will be extinct, but definitely it informs the way that we invest in Web3. I think that if you look at our 7 to 10 year, I think it is at the moment, our life cycle, and I think at the moment we're looking at around that 10 years. It's not something it's not a 1 year flip around, and so our LPs are trusting us to say that in the next 10 years, if we have that and we've held an investment for 10 years, I'm sure that we would have seen a bull market in that time. And also, if you look into kind of the themes and investment thesis, you can see, okay, well, maybe it's not going to turn as quick a profit in the next couple of quarters, however long that may be. But we're not interested in things that are going to be making a really quick profit and then not sustaining over a long term. So really sustainable investments that are in a high risk space, which is Web3 at the moment, but then also looking at it and saying, probably a lot of our LPs that are very traditional funds allocate a smaller portion to high-risk investment. So they're kind of expecting a risk. And when we raised, we said we were raising for Web3, and we haven't heard any complaints.
So how would you characterize the institutional, and by institutional I mean, say, big 4 banks, the biggest super funds, how would you characterize the institutional knowledge base of the Web3 space, blockchain, tokenization, crypto, etc.?
I think that's a very interesting question. I think as institutions, we all have a long way to go. I think we have wonderful people, probably the people sitting in this room tonight, who work at these institutions, who are very well informed and are probably leading the path for their companies and whether it be Big 4 or else. But definitely, I think the big barriers would be policy. We do see a lot of issues in terms of larger institutions having hesitation until they get policy approval, or at least, not a negative response back from our government. Things like changes in government are very difficult for the space, at the moment at least. and hopefully that won't become over-politicized in future. But yeah, generally, I think as long as we're increasing education over time in all of our companies, if all of us go out and we're increasing our education and the people around us, then definitely these institutions will end up making decisions that are pro-Web3 ethically and financially.
Last question, because we're on a tight time schedule. You can wave a magic wand, you can change one thing about the Aussie VC community / participants. What is that as a relatively new entrant to that ecosystem?
To be completely honest, I have had very good interactions with Australian VCs. I have not had somebody, like particularly at Airtree, like Ada's here tonight, we have an amazing, if we may say so ourselves, we have an amazing culture.
There's Ada. Hi, Ada.
I've never felt like I wasn't supported within Airtree, and even outside of Airtree, I have wonderful contacts. Definitely, like even internationally, I have VC people that Web3 as a whole is a very supportive space. I can't speak to Web2 VC in Australia, obviously, or internationally, but I can say I have no complaints.
Or you won't, which I totally understand.
I mean, I'm a Web3 girl.
Nice answer. Thank you. That was brilliant. Short and sweet. Thank you so much, Steph, for taking the time. By the way, yeah. Just a super quick one, Liya. Go. Yeah.
How are you thinking in terms of the time horizon of mass adoption? So sometimes you might look at a project, it's really great team, everything is awesome, but you don't know if the market is going to get there. Sort of what's your view on that?
I'd say this is one thing I struggle with. I see a lot of really good Web3 companies that probably I can see having a wonderful future, but potentially they're not going to be making it in that small market cycle. So as a VC, I would say, yes, I would probably pass on them until they are able to gain more traction or the market changes a little. But definitely, I think I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you timeframes or anything like that. But as long as we're building sustainable products and we're building things that are ethically and financially viable, I'm bullish all the way.
And the thing I was going to say is, where can people find you? I mean, I know you're on Twitter, you are on LinkedIn. If people want to get in touch or just find you or what have you, what's the best way to do that?
Find me on Twitter. I'm oxstephb or stephb.eth. And also Stephanie Bazley on LinkedIn. If you want my Discord, hit me up. Telegram, hit me up.
That sounded far too open. Okay, thank you. We have, next slide. Who's on the slide machine?
It's supposed to be me, but I'll get you guys up there.
Yeah, you go.
I just wanted to mention, because people might not know it, but we're going to make the slides available. I know some of the previous ones, Arturo's got very tiny handwriting, very dainty. Where is he? Somewhere. Anyway.
Quite feminine.
It's good. We love it. That's why we love him. But we're going to make the slides available, and I'm going to be editing this video for the people that are online, because all they can see, because normally we actually maybe it's okay. Chris, we're okay. Can they see the slides properly online? Okay, they are. Well, I don't have to do as much editing as I thought I would. But anyway, we're going to get a panel up. So let's
Liya,
go.
I think you're on that panel. Thank you so much, Steph. Thanks, everyone. Give it up for Steph. Thank you, Steph.
Do we have any other panelists? Oh, here we go. Mitchell Travers. Alrighty. So 3 mics. I'm just going to let you guys talk amongst yourselves, and we're going to record it, basically.
Sounds good. Fireside.
So we haven't met. I'm Steph. Hi. I'd also like to introduce you to Mitchell Travers and Joseph Beverly, and they are the co-founders of Soulbis. So I'd like you to tell me maybe one sentence about yourself.
Yeah, cool. So Mitchell, I've been in the Web3 space for about 7 years. A lot of you guys know me. Started at a digital identity platform using ZK proofs, those sorts of things. Built that for 3 years. Then ran my own exchange, Oz Merchant, for 2 years. And now fortunate enough to co-found Soulbis, which is the first decentralized society consultancy. But I'll let Joey go.
Hey everyone, I'm Joey. Oh boy. Keep recording. Hey everyone, I'm Joey. I've actually met most of you in this room, which is pretty awesome. I love that. But I've grown up with this technology. I've grown this technology, right? So I've been in Bitcoin blockchain for around 10 years. I swear, if this chick. Down it?
Like this.
I've been on so many panels now, I keep getting it wrong
Like
every time.
this, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Joey. So I've obviously met most of you in this room, either through like very basic conversations, all the way through to having great relationships and friendships with you, business or personal, or both most of the time. But I've been in blockchain Bitcoin for about 10 years now. Started off with my dad and my brother, and ever since then I've pretty much done everything under the sun. And so I'm really lucky as well to be co-founding this consultancy and advisory firm with Mitch. But briefly on Soulbis, we are a research and advisory firm, again, specialized in decentralized society and Soulbound Tokens, which we're here to talk to you and obviously panel about. I'm very excited.
So I'd like to kind of get a little bit of an idea. Who here knows what a Soulbound token is? Oh, look at this. Wonderful, wonderful.
Hi, people.
So maybe Mitch, would you like to kind of tell us? Actually, I would say Mitch and I actually met when I was at a pitch night recently. And I'd asked one of the people presenting whether they'd considered the use of Soulbound tokens in their company. And unfortunately, the question...
They were perplexed.
Yeah. But then Mitch found me afterward, and definitely some great chats here on Soulbound tokens. So I think Mitch would love to explain his version of what a Soulbound token is.
Yeah, so I guess to put it simply, we've got blockchain creates the internet of value, and there is two ways that value exists. It's of course in capital, but it's also in reputation, and that's a piece that blockchain hasn't really tackled at the moment yet. And coming from the identity space, historically, reputation and identity does inform value, right? So what a soulbound token is in simple terms, it's a NFT which is non-transferable and equally recoverable. Now to put that even more simply, is an identity attribute that we can put on an immutable ledger, of which supports a person with the way that they interact on the internet of value. And I guess I'll pass to Joey here, and we can start talking about use cases. I want this conversation to be very free-flowing, and I like the idea of us debating whether or not Soulbound tokens is a viable use case for a particular application, because I think that's going to be one of the best ways for us to explain it perfectly. But
I can't imagine either of you saying anything bad, so I might have to be the
please.
the negative.
So I think just simply on another form, like to kind of show you about how big this kind of ecosystem can be, is think about how many times you had to like stake your reputation personally. All of us here right now, we don't have to pay for anything to be here today, right? You stake your reputation. There's no collateral you have to put up. Right now, Web3, everything is collateralized to actually exist and interact with. So there's a huge gap. Like, what about the people who can't get uncollateralized loans? You always have to over-collateralize, right? So that's how big this market is. Think about how many times you actually have to stake your reputation, how many times you actually have to commit capital. It's probably maybe 1% of all interactions you've ever made in your life and ever will make. So there's obviously a massive market out there. Next question is, how can we attest reputation and trust on in a digital format? And obviously this is what we're going to be speaking about. So let's get into use case. What do you think? It's all very organic, by the way. This is how we work.
if anyone has a use case that off the top of their head that they would like to discuss with Soulbound tokens, yeah, go. License? Like a driver's license?
Like Optus, like on topic?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Okay, so for example, it might be a really bad idea to store a driver's license on chain. So say I've chosen to do so, and that means that my driver's license is linked immutably to my wallet address, and then I'm going about my business, transacting. And in a few years, when we're thinking about our transactions on chain, it's not necessarily just financial transactions we're looking at. We're looking at, pretty much, NFTs, like really any use case you can think of. Our interactions in the world, it will form an entire map of our persona and our activity. And if we were to then put on a public blockchain our proof of identity for anyone to read, it's quite dangerous. So one of the things that people talk about with Soulbound tokens is like, maybe one of you can talk to it.
I can jump
is
in.
how you would fix this problem.
Yeah, cool. So license is a great great issue to discuss when it comes to Soulbound tokens, because I think that firstly the first order of Soulbound tokens is very simple. It's like an achievement in a game, a badge, something like that, of which you don't need this like personally identifiable data of which is vulnerable and could make people vulnerable as well. Like we've all listened to the Optus hack of the last week, and it is making a lot of people vulnerable who didn't realize that they were. So when we're talking about putting licenses and core identity attributes on chain, we have to be really, really careful. So some technology that we can use around blockchain, and Arturo mentioned it earlier tonight, is zero-knowledge proofs. So what a Soulbound token does is a relationship between an issuer. The issuer would be, for example, the New South Wales government, who issues you your driver's license. They then receive that identity attributes from you, have proof of personhood from you in some aspect, so you actually prove you are who you say you are. And then they would issue it a Soulbound token. However, they would wrap that Soulbound token in a zero-knowledge proof. And this sort of gets to that point that Arturo was mentioning, where zero-knowledge proofs are beautiful because it's a proof that that occasion existed, and people can use that identity attribute in a Soulbound token to prove that you are who you say that you are.
But
However,
Mitchell,
they wouldn't
Mitchell,
have
would you use all the data? Would you part of the data?
Absolutely not. You wouldn't have the identity document number, you wouldn't have the date of birth, you wouldn't have the address, all of these things that we need to prove identity. You would just have a proof that this identity document is true and valid. That would issue a Soulbound token, and it would be attached to your wallet. And the beautiful thing about that is it becomes almost decentralized and interoperable in a way where I can then go to Binance and onboard, and Binance, if they are willing to accept that issued Soulbound token as a proof of KYC, they could do that. And they wouldn't need to acquire the identity attributes. So it's quite an interesting concept.
I think,
Bounce.
kind of like to summarize that, right? We are able to put the, like, what would we achieve by putting a license on chain? Would be able to identify ourselves, would be able to like do KYC, AML, you know, compliance, and a lot of like our interactions, generally we want our identity attached to in the normal world. However, what Mitchell is saying is we can use a Soulbound token for that as long as we protect it and potentially obfuscate like that a little bit in terms of, you know, not using raw data. There are lots of smart solutions. Did you have another use case, Joey?
I think more so going back to like, you know, limitations of like, why do we need this? You know, blockchain, Web3, you know, being there here for so long, we just build, and sometimes we do a lot of churn. And churn is getting to the point that I've been seeing, especially from even, you know, clients or so, some of them building this, you know, near same things in a direction. And so how can we start kind of synchronizing this together? But one of the key areas that I'm quite conscious about with this is like, you know, why Soulbound tokens? We already have NFTs, we have cryptocurrency, we already have like, you know, vault standards and other types of different token standards. You know, why Soulbound tokens? And it comes down to that element of like non-transferability, but equally recoverability. Like if you put an NFT, if you have like even a proof of your identity on an NFT, you can still transact that. It's not pretty secure, right? Same reason why
I become Joey, Joe becomes me.
Let's do it. Exactly. Mitchell is Joey. I'm Mitchell.
Transferring an NFT.
Will now refer to us like that for the rest of the panel, okay? To give you an example. But the reality is that, think about anything right, your medical records right. NFT of that, it would make no sense. It wouldn't make any sense at all. You could, even platforms creating cryptocurrency proofs to have value proof that they've staked something, it's still collateralized based relationships. Like uncollateralized based relationships are so hard to do in this point in time, but the way pathway forward is something that's equally unique to you, so your identity and way, maybe your name, and as well your trust reputation, that kind of graph you leave behind when you put down a digital footprint somewhere. You interact with those NFT projects, right? It tells a lot about a person, right? So over time, maybe 10 years, we could create a graph of all the kind of like lineage, like your NFT lineage in a way, and that could kind of determine like, you know, not determine you, but map out you as a person. So maybe Soulbound tokens is a means not for just bureaucratic identity, like we have for identity itself, but how about like bureaucratic for like social-based identity, like POAP, if anyone's been using that. So maybe as a use case to throw forward to Mitchell is, you know, is Soulbound token a better form of community-based attestations?
Yeah, and I just want to add something there. You can have infinite Soulbound tokens, but it's up to the person to curate their soul and what they share as well. So I could have a Soulbound token specifically for KYC purposes. I could have 10. And then I could curate them all together to be one soul and share that soul as my KYC soul, my NFT soul, for example. And I think that that's quite beneficial in transitioning Web 2 to Web 3, because Web 2 is just one standard. Whereas if you're able to create a curated Sol for different Web 3 use cases and iterations, there's actually a potential there to protect your privacy of data of which is not required. For example, the age-hold example in sort of the identity space is I turn up to a bouncer at a bar and I'm providing them my address and my date of birth. Really, all they need to know is I'm over the age of 18, right? So this sort of ability to have your identity attributes on a wallet and then curate what you share with people is actually quite profound and important. I think especially when we're talking about the Internet of Value and getting to transferring value in a digital environment. But yeah.
I think we had a couple of questions.
Yeah, let's go. Questions are good.
I've got to do the right thing. Damn it, you got me during my meeting. Let's do this. Where am I running to? Who's got, oh my God, right at the end, of course. We're going to go with this fine young gentleman over here.
Thanks. Excuse me. Great prezzo, thanks very much. I think you're making the right decision to try to steer the conversation away from attestations and personal certificates, birth certificates, etc. Q Victor Dominello, kind of been done. You're competing against New South Wales Gov. No point in doing that. Now, you talk about the social side of it, and I was just considering the anti-social use case and the bullying that could come out from what you're doing. I was wondering if you considered how you try to manage that.
Same reason why, like, I think just as a general point, then go specific. A general point, we always go to the worst case scenario. You know, cryptocurrency, how many billions of dollars have been lost to scams? But obviously we still talk about the, the revenue generated from that. I think I focus on obviously the solutions and positives that come out of this. That creating some kind of level of zero knowledge identity and proof of persons in a way, which is pretty amazing and crazy. But if we do kind of go down that level, like the darker side element, yeah, it can get bad with anything else, like scams. Like imagine the dark side of billions of dollars lost to cryptocurrency. The bad side of Soulbound Tokens is that you probably leave maybe some kind of graph that you may not have wanted to, and maybe these token standards that were created by, let's say, certain developing houses weren't secure enough to actually not just recover back, but destroy. Because recoverability doesn't mean that it can't be destroyed. I mean, it can be destroyed, but equally it can be revived. So maybe you have a situation where you have like assassination contracts. People kind of send you like these crazy Soulbound tokens of like your life. That's really bad. So how can we manage that and make platforms? And I think like that's kind of open question to the community. Because like, on January 26th of this year, Vitalik released a blog post on his blog, called Soulbound. And then on May 10th this year, he released a full white paper. So it's a developing conversation, and all the researchers are considering this. It's a tough one. Like, what do you think?
I think like one of the important points about the Soulbound token space at the moment, and what I like about it as well the most, is that it is this first time that we're able to move away from the complete financialization of blockchain as a technology. Like right now, blockchain, and the past like 10 years, it's all been financial applications. And there has been a push amongst the like sort of political economy community and social sciences community in order to get into this space and actually provide insight and value in shaping the conversation. And I think that Soulbound Tokens is this like really beautiful moment for that synergy between the financial applications and the sort of social anthropology, sociology, these sorts of disciplines to get into that space and provide their knowledge and insights and shape that direction. And one of the largest organizations that's pushing Soulbound Tokens forward is this community called Radical Exchange Community. And that is based on that sort of social good, social sort of political economy lens to view the world and actually build sort of new structures. So yeah, I think it's equally, as much as it is a danger, it's an opportunity, and that's sort of why we're here on the journey, so then we can guide it in the right direction.
We've got another question up the back.
On a very practical note, though, I will just say, like, definitely we're talking around the opportunity and risk. If we're going on a very direct route, though, like, just by having a Soulbound token, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not recoverable as an identity. It just means it's not recoverable on chain to anyone. So technically you could have a Soulbound token and that identity code for that Soulbound token may be shared with authorities. So the authorities are able to, trace back your proof of identity for crimes and bullying, whatever. So kind of when we're talking about this, we're talking about it in terms of risk and opportunity, but 100% there are checks and balances.
Thank you. I've got a question up the back. Here we go.
Yeah, have they considered the idea of using the SBTs for ownership of assets within a metaverse, digital assets, stuff like that?
Definitely. I think if you think simply about this, whenever we build new kind of standards, we're making them scalable. So scalability is so critical in a place that when you commit a contract, it's out there forever. So if the scalability of this is like, yeah, you should be able to have some kind of SBT that attests or kind of notifies that you are X person. Maybe to earn this certain asset in the future because it comes with a regulated product, that you actually have a proof of person's SBT, which is issued by, let's say, a few providers, and that kind of proof is then distributed among those providers to confirm that over time. Because the issue is that when you have one provider, you have a centralization risk. Like, how do we maintain SBTs? And that's a bigger question for the future. How can we have like ownership of assets in a decentralized way so you can securely own it and it'll be taken back equally? Yeah.
Can I ask the question back to you? In the gaming use case example, or that metaverse, are you wanting to issue a Soulbound token in order to be like a game achievement or a badge? Or really are you trying to issue something which is an item of which has value that you want gamers to transfer with each other? Because the latter is just an NFT, and the former is a Soulbound token, which actually creates identity for that person, for that character or avatar in the game. So think about it as two different products and two different results and incentives that you're creating. So like Soulbound tokens, if you add them to your metaverse, you're creating stickiness. People want to stay. They want to be there because they earned something in December 2021 because they were at the Christmas event at your metaverse, and they got this really cool Christmas tree, and they can show that Soulbound token that they were there at that real point in time, kind of like a POAP. Whereas if you wanted that item to be transferable and to have value, just do it as an NFT. 721. If you would like for it to not be transferable, or if you like for it to include that person's identity and their character, then do it as an SBT.
I suppose what I was more going at was the fact that there's so many metaverses, and every time you register for a metaverse and you've got own assets in that metaverse, you're sort of replicating yourself across multiple metaverses. So maybe it's a thought exercise whether that could be something that connects your assets from different...
Absolutely, you hit nail on the head there. So that's where the soul becomes important. So I would have a gamer soul, and I would log into World of Warcraft, I would log into Dota, whatever game, with that soul. And then if that game actually sort of appreciates attributes from other games, for example, they're part of the same Blizzard ecosystem, then yeah, sure, I might get achievements which are cross-game, which is quite a cool concept, right?
I've got a question over here.
Yeah, the guy in the back right there.
Quick one on network effect. You guys actually build this. I say this having taught a lot of this stuff at one of the unis down in Melbourne. A lot of people say they want to do this. IDs is something that I've even spoken about at these events previously. But most of the obligations around ID come from things like FATF, which is international. And people talk about, for example, some of the other presentations, regulators doing stuff. They're just rolling out what they're being told internationally. How do you expect to get buy-in? Because I know even groups like UTS have their, whatever it's called, system. But every time you go for a job or anything else which requires academic transcript, give us a certified hard copy. So how do you expect to differentiate yourselves and actually get a network effect?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the probably more prudent questions and problems. And I guess like to speak on behalf of Soulbis, part of the way that we're approaching this problem is through this consultancy and advisory lens. So then we can be part of the conversation with as many institutions and or startups as possible in order to just sow the seeds and the ideas of this sort of SBT, more open ecosystem. And I agree with you, the technology isn't there yet even. So what we have to do is just be in the right place at the right time when the technology is ready. So when these institutions are starting to pull the trigger on enabling Web3 integration, Soulbound tokens becomes one of the things that's most interesting to them. But great problem. Would like to talk to you about it more.
I think briefly on that though, there are proto SBTs, and if anyone has read the white paper, and I highly recommend reading it. It's online. It's called Decentralized Society: Finding Web3 Soul by Vitalik, Pooja, and Eklund Whale. But in terms of projects right now creating these proto SBTs and proto Soul issuers, that's kind of outlined in the paper. It's like you're right. There's a massive hurdle ahead of us. Like we have so much regulation where we either have to comply with or create a new standard and risk, defaulting to just complying again anyways. And it's a pathway. So I think like there's a platform out there called Sticky Notes. You can actually make an SBT right now because basically within the Solidity code, there's a very simple function in there about confirming anti-transfer ownership, which is only one part of an SBT. So it's a proto SBT in the fact that it does part of the function, the recoverability element right. That is the hardest part of an SBT right now, right? Not like denying people from transferring functions is very easy within a Solidity, but actually like recovering something that's lost to oblivion or even taken away from someone else to give back and permissioning those people in a decentralized fashion, that's the really hard and big hurdle ahead of us. But we do know, and obviously being like in the forefront of this technology, we get the privilege to kind of see where it's going, and it's pretty exciting for everyone.
Sounds like very exciting to me, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed learning a little bit about Soulbound Tokens. Hit Joy and Mitch up for any info on that.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll put the mics down. What's that saying? Not your keys, not your crypto, so not your soul, not your token. Is that where we're getting to? Don't tell a soul. Love it. That was fantastic. All of this is recorded. There's a lot of wonderful kind of presentations going on. We're going to see more of this. This is such a great space. Put your hands up here if you came to our previous Aus DeFi events. Hands up. Wow, a lot of people came back. I don't know why you've come back, but no, I really thank you guys so much. And please do keep coming back because we're going to grow bigger, better. As I said before, 1,100 members now. And that's only just within this year, so like it's real people doing real things. Speaking of real people, this is a chance for us to talk about what's going on in the community. I believe Aaron and also John, John, I can see him up there. John, do you want to come up? Who wants to come up? Do you guys want to fight over who comes up first? All right, let's go Aaron. Aaron. The chain in the link. Grab a mic. Yeah, that's true.
Hey everyone, my name's Aaron. I'm from the internet, but most people know me as the guy who's the Chainlink advocate for Sydney/Australia. So at 11 p.m. tonight, SmartCon's got a Web3 conference called SmartCon on, which is starting in New York in a couple of hours /11 p.m. So there will be a YouTube stream of the conference on the Chainlink YouTube channel. So if you've learned absolutely nothing today, I think the most important thing to take out is cryptographic truth has the potential to transform the relationships between humanity and technology. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. I've learned nothing except for that. So, but no, seriously, Chainlink is very powerful. If you're interested in data, that is an oracle, and an oracle is a way that we can get things on chain because we can't put everything on chain because it costs a lot. But then you got layer 2s and we go down another rabbit hole and then I don't sleep. Nick's waving in the back. What's up? Nick posted a link. Congratulations, Nick, you posted a link. Congratulations, Nick. So it's a link in the chat where? Sorry? Okay. In the Google Meet, so for all of these ones, we've got a Google Meet. If you're online watching, it's there. We will put this in the show notes. We're hoping to get the video for this out probably over the weekend. Let's bring Mr. Siderides here, the Greek god, John from NFT Sydney. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm not wearing my NFT Sydney shirt, and no, I'm not endorsed by FTX. I got this at the Gold Coast. But on the topic of privacy and keeping a low profile, NFT Sydney is running a first event of its kind called Blackout, and what it's going to be is no phones, no cameras, no recording. So unfortunately, to all the people online, you'll
Can
have
we
to be
turn
there
off the
in
lights?
person. Yeah, we can turn off the lights for that if we really want to.
Oh, maybe not. Oh, yeah.
Maybe not. Next time. But yeah, it's just a chance. So we're actually going to get some people who aren't doxed on stage. There's going to be a curtain. They're going to be sharing all kinds of alpha that's too juicy for the cameras. And it's the first of its kind. So it's going to be located, you're hearing it here first, in Cheers Bar, which is right near Town Hall. It's going to be a really awesome venue. We've got an awesome DJ who we're going to announce soon as well. And it's just going to be a night jam-packed, full of alpha, full of degenerate activity in the dark. So tickets are on sale now. Mr. Nick Bishop is going to be posting a link there, and I'll chuck it up in the Discord too, but would love to see everyone who's in there. It's in the chat. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, come along to the event. Let's have some fun in the dark. Thank you very much.
Oh my God. Let's have some fun in the dark. John Siderides 2022. Well done. I mean, the good thing in the Web3 space is you can make your own jobs. You don't necessarily have to go to an employer and they'll go like, show me your Twitter, so you'll be fine. But look, we've got an amazing community. We know a lot of people in the space here who are working in the dark or not. But this is the open mic part. We've got till 8 o'clock. Does anyone want to come up and talk about something that they're doing? Or, you know, we can be soft. We can, you know, have you up here and I can ask you some questions. Does anyone want to come up, dox themselves and talk about some cool stuff, or are we going to get Ray to breakdance? Is that what? Okay, maybe later at the after party. But yeah, if anyone is interested in these events and wants to come up on stage and talk about the stuff they're building, they're interested in, they're studying. You know, in Melbourne, for example, we've got one of our guys down there who was building on a project and stuff. He's put that on pause. He's now doing some research for the Ethereum Foundation. So if anyone, you know, is doing some cool stuff like that, that's really good. Anyone? I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyone? Shows how much I listen in Spanish. Okay, so look, before we finish up and stuff, I've got a few questions here, and we put this up in the Discord. Hands up here who's working in something that is either fully Web3 or is adjacent and, you know, wanting to get into Web3, or maybe you're working full-time somewhere but you actually want to get into the Web3 space. Hands up. People here? There's quite a few. This is good. Keep your hands up. This is Lynn, by the way. Lynn is from Stone and Chalk. Hi, Lynn. Woo! And hands up here who wants to, say, work with others that are doing cool stuff in the Web3 space. Hands up, hands up. Oh my gosh. You guys are really cool. Well, this is good because we're trying to create something here. No public announcements just yet, but you know, we're going to try to create something. You can probably figure it out if you're here. But basically, we do want to create a bit of a hub in this space. There's going to be multiple hubs. Melbourne is doing some cool stuff at Upside Down. There's a few other groups that are developers, or there's groups of marketers. There's groups of different people working in this space, and it's amazing. But yeah, if people are interested, please do. Who else is? Where's the Stone and Chalk people? There's Lynn. Ben's outside somewhere. There's other people here, or just come talk to us. Because there is some stuff that is going on behind the scenes. But anyway, all of this is going to be online fairly soon over the weekend. If anyone has any questions, the best part about all these events, I mean, look, you see me running around. I don't necessarily get to listen to all the talks and stuff there because we have the replay. Thank you, Chris, by the way. Chris in the background, put your hand up. Chris is from a place called Digital Village. They do a lot of digital stuff outside and inside of villages, and it's really good. They've consulted to us, which is great, and they are the ones that help put on. It was a really bad plug. I'll do a really good plug next time, but without them, we wouldn't be able to put on the production quality that we have, and they are also doing stuff in the Web3 space. But right now, the best part of these nights is networking. So go forth, network. The pizzas should be arriving in about 1 minute. Actually, I've got a voicemail. There you go. My pizza voicemails are there. I'm going to go help get the pizzas out. Go mingle. Go be merry. Thank you so much for coming to our first event with Stone and Chalk. Thank you.
building. It's been a minute, tell me how you're healing. Cause I'm about to get into my feelings. How you feeling? How you feel right now?